Okay, today we're going to talk about angles of elevation and depression. So these are the two common ways to describe angles. And this is generally in word problems where we're talking about people who are either elevating from their eye level or actually looking down. And the special name that's given to those types of angles are angles of elevation and angles of depression. Now, let's first identify what they are. So an angle of elevation is basically when you are looking up from your eye level. So for an angle of elevation, and both of those angles are measured from the horizontal. And that is very, very, very important to remember. That is one of the most important things, that both the angles are measured from the horizontal. So what that means is that your angle of elevation, if that's the horizontal line, then the angle of elevation is that. So that is your angle of elevation. I'll label that as A and label that as B. And if we want to demonstrate or show the angle of depression, which is the second one, like that, again, that's the horizontal. So the angle of depression would be this one. So that's the most important thing to remember, and that's where most of us makes mistakes and have misconception about which angle to measure. And we'll do some examples where you can have a look at that. So basically, for an angle of elevation, you need to look flat and then raise your eyes. So if you're looking up, the word elevate means going up. So if you look up, that is an angle of elevation. Depress, or going down, is basically the angle of depression. And that's when, if you need to look flat, so if you're looking straight and then you lower your gaze, basically, then that is an angle of depression. Now that we know what they are, and that's just a little picture of what they are. Now that we know what they are, what we need to do is identify how do we use this to solve problems. So there's some certain steps that we need to follow. And if you follow these steps, then it'll become easier to solve the problems. So what we're doing is we're going to use trig. So we'll use SOHCAHTOA, but before we use SOHCAHTOA, we identify whether it's an angle of elevation or depression, and then identify where that angle should be in your diagram. All right. So these are the steps. The first thing, to solve your problems, your word problems or modeling and problem solving, you first have to draw a diagram. Okay, and again, as we've discussed all the time, one of the strategies of problem solving is drawing a diagram. So you draw a diagram and label the key information. Identify and draw the appropriate right angle triangles separately. Solve using trig then to find the missing measurements, whether it's an angle or side. And then you have to express your answer in words. So you'll say the missing side or the height of such and such is such and such. And as I said, when we do examples, it'll make more sense. Okay. A very important thing is that sometimes you're given an angle which is actually not an angle of elevation. So the angle that you might be given would be, or it's not an angle of depression. So the angle that you might be given would be, say, would be maybe that angle. So if that angle is given, you need to know that this is a right angle. So therefore, the remainder angle over here, that'll be equal to 90 take away, if this is angle A, take away angle A. Another thing, and this is again, you will find in some questions, and you can apply this. So this is just a recap of the Z rule. So the Z rule is basically going from there to there to there. Now think back, things back to angles between parallel lines. And what do we know about our angles over there and angle over there? Yes, these two angles are equal. Okay, something to remember, something to identify as well, because we're going to use that. Right, let's have a look at some examples. So we'll do one example first, and then we'll do some in class. Kate is in a helicopter, which is flying over the ocean at a constant altitude of 91 meters. The word that altitude means height. Okay, she spots Hannah in the ocean, about to be attacked by a shark, at an angle of depression of 16 degrees. How far does Kate need to travel in the helicopter to be directly over Hannah so she can lower a rope and save her? Now for this one, our diagram is basically given. So Kate is over there in a helicopter, and the altitude or the height is 91, which is given by this side. And the angle of depression that she can see is at 16 degrees. So which is that one? So first thing, the triangle is made for us. As we always do, we have to first identify what the OA and the hypotenuse is. Again, that's done. So that is the opposite side in relation to 16. Let's write them down. Okay. So we know that our angle is equal to 16 degrees. We know that the opposite side is equal to 91 meters. And we need to find our adjacent side, and that's the unknown. So O and A uses TOA. Let's start substituting them. Tangent theta is equal to O over A. So tangent of the angle 16 is equal to O, which is 91, divided by A, which is X. And again, we've got our unknown in the denominator. So we swap, and therefore we get X is equal to 91 divided by tangent 16 degrees. And if we get our calculator, let's get our calculator there, and let's do 91 divided by, what's a scientific calculator? There it is. Divide by tangent of 16, close brackets. Hang on, let me just restart this. So we go 91 divided by tangent 16. Equals, and that gives us 317.54, and that's rounded off to 2 decimal places, so let's write that down. 317, pretty sure. Yes, 300. So it's 317.54 meters, and that is approximate, so we can do that. Okay. Alright, now what I'd like you to do is have a look at the rest of the questions that there are. See if you can start them, and then we'll do them in class.